right, so back to the code. And I missed another follow. Hey, what up? How you doing, Chris Jones? I missed some follows real quick, so Lost Frequencies and ECEB. Thank you for the follows. Welcome. How y'all doing? Alright, so the part that we are trying to figure out now is how do we get raw features decoded properly? And it's not going to be that same, like, what do they call that first thing? The type for it? Actually, we might be able to do that just fine. How do we do an array of those things? I think that was in a Stack Overflow. JSON response, child. Haha. Okay, so the big part of what we're doing right now. Where is data getting used? Ah, so it's looking it up within the data. That's if there's a top-level data attribute, right? So yeah, kind, and then data. Gotcha. Okay. This person recommends Swifty JSON. And right, we looked at Swifty JSON, not touched in 2 years. Maybe that's fine. This is the big part here. Yes, Swifty JSON saves us from all of that by allowing this. I think I'm okay with the verbose nature of it for now. And then we might do this, like, lookup stuff. See, I'm okay with that. We're gonna do it the ugly way first. Okay, so we can do a map from kids to children. Okay, so then this would be something like raw features is equal to try. Hold on, are they doing values.decode? They are not. Oh. So I think that's the bigger difference, right? This decoder container. this would be an array of feature.self. Ah, and yes, I'm messing that up. String feature self. No. Oh, maybe I don't need the self. Okay, interesting. So, when we see what they're doing here, instead of the decoder, they're getting the JSON of it. This is from 2016, though, so this might be an older API. How to use conditional conformance. And yeah, any Swift users out there, what would be the way that you'd do this, right? Because this is a hash map of these features, right? Technically, it's just string feature like that. How would you end up decoding this? So yeah, Krasner, if you're out there, could really use your help. I don't think this article is actually helping. Oh, so use JSON serialization directly instead of the decoder. It was good, mainly just discussing the content we'd like to do. The tricky part's always discussing, like, the rate as well. So I think that's a bit trickier. But still valuable. Yeah, that part's so tricky. Because, yeah, for editing... Yeah, exactly. Just in case, on Twitch, if you want to be sarcastic, do a kappa. It's like the Twitch well-known way of doing that. Yeah, no worries. Oh, and hold on, Space Case, while you're here, did you want to quickly discuss what issues you were having trying to install things? I would say, first and foremost, make sure that you remove all node modules folders, and then do the pnpm install from the top. Have you done that yet? Oh, no rush. I was just throwing it out there if you wanted to do it. You don't have to. So, what do you mean by that, S2K infra? What do you mean by that infra? Yeah, happy to answer the question. Because again, I'm basically a Swift newbie. But we've already gotten a lot of good stuff done, right? So, that doesn't matter that much. And yeah, I think we can pour a beverage, maybe 2 today. Trying to pace it, though we're basically in celebration mode. Also don't want to overdo it, because we got to dial back from the fun employment quota, I guess. Yeah. So we've done that, but right here, string feature is not decodable. So how do we do that? Right? And we have decodable on all these things. But string feature as a map is not inherently decodable. Yeah, it starts on Monday. I'll wait till Monday to shout that out. Yeah. One person already kind of probably knows. But yeah, I'm waiting till Monday to do like the official announcement. Yeah, I'm stoked. Feature type is an enum. That enum is decodable. But we have many different types of features, right? It's like a polymorphic type. So the way I've kind of figured we have to do this is raw features is going to be the base feature type. And then each individual feature type will be its own bucket, so that we can actually grab the types that we get. In Kotlin, we didn't have to do this part, I don't think. In Go, we definitely had to do this part. So it's a little mix of like the type system between Kotlin and Go. Basically, raw features comes from a features prop. And then we do like lookups of feature type for something. And then once we get into a selected feature type, then there's a value type that we then need to select upon for these sub-selected types. So there's a fair bit of polymorphism going on. Yeah, no worries, no stress. But all of our enums and all of our structs besides the top level here works. So environment and where is it? Group. These two end up needing decodable, but these two yell at us about not being like easily decodable because of the way we're doing our mapping. So if I do that, then it complains that we need init from. And I'm thinking instead of using the decoder, we just do it with the serializer instead. Kind of like what was recommended elsewhere. Yeah, no worries, Space Case. Take your time. Doesn't even have to be today. Like, yeah, no stress, no pressure. Nope, because it would yell at us about feature. Right, so feature right here is fully codable. This would be yelling at us right there. Well, I guess technically we're using feature as a protocol. That's probably the big part. So I would need this to be a struct instead, right? But then we, like, there is no inheritance, right? As far as I know. Or is there some other way I need to make this toggle feature inherit these values? I thought making this a protocol was the only way to do that. So yeah, let me go look up the syntax for inheritance with struts. Right, protocol is the wrong thing then. Yeah, no worries, Space Case. Yep, no stress. Any day but Wednesday or Sunday. So what up, Zompe? How you doing? Thank you for the follow. And yeah, Chris Jones, what were you up to? We did the shout out, but yeah, didn't get a chat out of you. Or I just missed it. No, I understand that you don't inherit from protocols, but how do you do struct inheritance? You don't do that, right? You only do inheritance with classes, correct? So what would be the right way to share something? Is an extension the way to do that? Okay. Any reason to have one struct with all fields in it? Because the types of value are different, right? So let value bool for a toggle feature, let value float 64 for a gradual feature. These are very much polymorphic data types, which means that you can't just jam it all into one struct. Right? Same props, different type. That is polymorphism. Rather than just creating separate structs for no reason, there's an absolute reason why these have to be polymorphic. We cannot change that structure because we're making an SDK consuming a JSON schema that is universal for every language. Does that make sense, Infra? So it's not just new type or new props. We also need to change the type of existing props. Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like something I want to do. What it's seeming like is I just need to abandon the decoder and then do my own custom serialization function, right? Using JSON serializer. So I might have to abandon the decodable part. Go code is pretty nice in that if I wanted to do, hold on, where was it? Feature, right? I could actually just omit a bunch of these common things and then just do feature like this. I know we can't do that in Swift, but then that would mean all I'm showing on these others would be the things that are different. I really like that about Go. It's not inheritance, it's composition, which is nice. Yes, all the enums conform to decode. Those are simple. Right? As an example, the only ones... No, we do. The reason we need it, and I'll point it out to you again. It complains about these, right? So when we hover, type environment does not conform to protocol decodable. The thing it's complaining about is this map, string to feature. And the reason there is feature is a protocol, right? So we still need to figure out the feature part of things. If I get rid of that, then yes, we're okay-ish. Right? That is then decodable. But this is the part we care about. That's the most important part. And that needs some type of init from. So instead of using decodable, we might need, or instead of using the decoder in our init, we might need to just use the JSON. Right? So we may need to just do something like this. Actually, hold on, that one's not it. Yeah, see, they're only showing us, like, the decoder stuff. So I need to find a better example that does just the raw serialization part instead. Such as... So that's my guess. I probably just need to implement this and then do it the really ugly way, right? At which point I don't end up needing decodable, I'm guessing. All of this is stemming from the fact that feature right now is just a protocol rather than a struct. If you do just !song, you can get a link. So my guess is basically that we would need to parse raw features here properly. But once we have that, we could probably then pass the feature itself to the decodable, like decoder of these things, right? So feature is the only one that's not a struct. That's a protocol. All of these other features implement that protocol. Then, selective feature implements the selective protocol. So this one here is a protocol as well. But once these are structs, then those should be properly decoded, right? So maybe in my JSON string any initializer, I could still instantiate the decoder and decode those individual ones into their buckets without having to do like every prop for those as well. Does that make sense, Infra? At this point, I don't think we're going to get away from doing this type of deserializer. So what was that impression there, Escamina? I'm curious about that. And hold on, is it Mina or Mina? I think I've seen both before. And I might have asked before, but I think I forgot. Should I be saying like Minha instead? Like, you know, explicitly saying the ha part. Let me know. I want to pronounce your name properly at least. But I'd love to know what those impressions are because I am deeply insecure. Escamina. Okay, so is that like a Portuguese reference? No worries, Infra. I'll rephrase my question in just a sec. Portuguese? Cool. Yeah, just double checking. I've met people from like Nordic countries that actually pronounce like mean huh kind of thing. So, thank you. Escamino. I can say that. And yes, I am a bit harsh here on stream, depending on how things are phrased or how people stream. I stream way more than most tech streamers out there, and I respond harshly sometimes to protect my own mental health for wanting to come back here and stream. People that let their chat run over them end up giving up streaming pretty quick. Right? You have to put your foot down to make it a place that you want to come back to as a streamer. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I stream too much, that's probably my fault. But rather than fixing that problem, I can just fix the problem of making sure that this is a stream I enjoy. Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm a way cooler person in person, right? Hanging out, chatting, having a drink at the bar. I'm pretty good at that. Yeah, better in person, for sure. I think you'll find most Twitch streamers are actually that way. I prefer Prime, like the Primogen, in person to his Twitter persona 1,000%. Ooh, I mean, so there's also a little bit to that, Krasner. Some people suck in person, but they're really nice on stream. There are some people that just suck in person, but they're like really good on stream. I'm not saying it happens here in science and tech or anything, or software and game dev. I'm saying just like that does exist. Yeah, exactly. Oh, right. For me to put on an act, I just can't. I'm here too much. I would definitely drop the act at least once in a while, and then that would feel way worse. Like I'm not even genuine. So yeah, I wouldn't even be able to live with myself if I felt non-genuine here on stream. Authenticity. I consider that part of my brand. Oh, thank you, Polycarp. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, and this is less of a teaching stream, so the fact that you guys are learning anything blows my mind a bit, because I just want to build stuff. So yeah, I appreciate it. But okay, so infra. Here's the quick question, and Krasner, feel free to chime in too. That's fine. Yeah, no worries, Estimania. Especially because I was a bit harsher that first time. I get it. I'm especially like wary of new people, which I need to work on, but that's how I am in real life too. Cool, thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, so Krasner and Infra, basically we're running into an issue with making this decodable because raw features here is, like, feature itself is a protocol, and protocols are not inherently decodable. Right? If we go up to the feature protocol, I don't think I can actually put decodable on that protocol, right? Let me double check. Oh, we can, but it doesn't actually mean what we think. And hey, what's up, Sympathy? How you doing? Yeah, I was thinking about trying to organize like a 5-iron session, which is like a golfing, like indoor golfing simulator kind of thing, but they got drinks and food and stuff. It's like Top Golf, but you don't need like the giant driving range. You're down? Cool. Yeah, I'm trying to organize that. I want to invite you and your husband, and I want to invite Colin, a friend I have from Seattle JS and other stuff. And yeah, I want to double check with Craig and Serby real quick first. Just, you know, they're like the core group who've been around, so I want to make sure we schedule around them. But would Friday or Sunday work for you? And we can work it out, the other stuff. I know. Little too much done in public here, but yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, probably not and Sunday, but yeah, we'll pick one of the days. So that's the thing, though, right? And I think a big thing about that Infra and Krasner and anyone else familiar with Swift is that these are fully decodable, right? Totally fine. So toggle feature implements the feature protocol, and the feature protocol is decodable, so that should work, right? We're not getting yelled at for it. No, I get it. That's fine. Yeah, I got like a 1 week, thing as well. Once a week. No big deal. But yeah, that would be super fun. So, yep, I will hit you up on Discord about the details once I hear back from some of the other crew. And yeah, should be fun. I've been wanting to do a 5-iron thing for a while. Since being fun employed, it's been harder to like justify going out because I'm probably gonna like at least purchase the first round of drinks and stuff like that, appetizers, pay for the session, stuff like that. It's just how I work. I don't go out enough to be wary of budgeting those things. And yeah, I mean, just in case. So your husband knows Seattle JS is a good once-a-month meetup on Wednesdays that's pretty awesome. I think you had said he's web dev adjacent, right? Maybe not. But y'all are more than welcome to go hang out at that too. It's like $5. I think they usually give you like a beer ticket or a wine ticket. Oh, he's in firmware. Okay, so totally different. Never mind. I can understand why it wouldn't be up his alley. Got it. But it is a good group of people to hang out. So, just throwing that out. Has he heard of the Rust meetup? They meet up here in Redmond, or like technically Microsoft, at one of the reactors. They get like 40 to 50 people there. Well, we do still need decodable for the props that aren't on the protocol. Right, Infra? So value here is not part of the feature protocol, because value is its own type. All the Seattle Indie events? Yeah, the one you pointed out. I really do want to consider that. I need to like keep an eye out for it to plan ahead for it. Oh, cool. Awesome. Were you in town last year during the PAX event? Oh, because the protocol does implement feature, which implements decodable. This is actually fully decodable? That's cool. Day before PAX, right? Okay, that's right. Playtest night where people just bring their games? Oh, that does sound fun. Okay, so the protocol inheritance actually works. That is cool to know. I like that. Yeah, good catch. Let me go do that for all the other features then. Right? And as long as value feature, another protocol, inherits the feature protocol, then decodable is inherited too, right? So yeah, oh, that really cleans that. Oop, but I messed up. I messed up. Shucks. Hold on. Okay, I like that. Here's the big problem I have with it, though. I think we're still running into the issue of this not inherently being deserializable because feature is a protocol, right? And it doesn't understand how to decode that inherently. So I end up needing coding keys, and I end up needing other stuff. And hold on, we got an ad break, so I can wait. Yeah, let's give it a little bit until people are back from an ad. In the meantime, how's all my subs doing? What you up to? Okay, yeah, I wanted to wait for the end. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so... And yeah, Sympathy, I think I remembered you saying that you ended up going to the, the indie event. It was like the day after the event I went to or whatever. And I missed that one, I think. So yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so basically SOBA, right, Seattle Online Broadcasters Association or whatever, had an event the night before PAX. And you had just gotten into town that day, probably, right? Or, like, I think I maybe mentioned it to you, and you're like, you had something else going. So, yeah, no worries. I would recommend going to that event again this year, for sure. Yeah, exactly. But okay, so here's the big issue, right? I need to actually be able to decode features into raw features, which means I end up needing to do my own custom init according to source key, right? So yeah, environment here does not conform because we could not automatically synthesize decodable because string feature does not conform to decodable. Even though we added decodable to feature, this map of it is the problem.
Support. Sure, I'll do my best to create a superhero based on the username S2Kinfra. S2Kinfra could be a superhero named S2K who has the power of superhuman strength and agility. S2K has the ability to transform into a powerful being, taking on the form of a sleek and agile feline creature. This transformation enhances their physical abilities, making them incredibly fast and strong. Their origin story begins when they were exposed to an experimental serum that granted them their powers. S2K was once a scientist working on a top-secret government project, but when the project was shut down, they decided to use the serum on themselves. S2K uses their powers to protect their city from danger, using their speed and strength to take down criminals and save civilians. They are a fierce and determined superhero, always ready to put themselves in harm's way to keep their city safe.
Hell yeah, S2K. Mr. Sir, that's your superhero name now. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. Appreciate that, Lemsel. Yeah, so now you don't got to worry about the ad. She was talking way faster, I think because I have a constraint of try and keep it within 30 seconds. I could relax that to 45 seconds, maybe. Yeah, she was talking way faster. So here's the thing, though. S2K, like, it goes way deeper than that. Maybe you missed me saying that, but technically selective feature is then its own protocol. Right? So if we look at selective feature, it's a protocol because selective feature is going to have its own value type. So there's going to be feature type, there's going to be value type, and there's like multiple levels of some of this. Now I know you used value type in your description there, but there's like more to it than that, right? This is like 2 layers of polymorphism, right? It gets very complicated. At this point, is it really worth using the codable protocol? Or would I just be better off manipulating the raw JSON data structure and reading from it? I know it's more boilerplate, it's more code to write, but at this point, trying to appease the decoder does seem like a lot of extra work. Kind of the same thing. Yeah, exactly, right? It'll be similar boilerplate, but technically because all these other things implement decodable, like it might be easy. I just think the hoops we're having to jump through for the decoder versus just using the raw JSON data as like a string lookup, that actually, like a string key lookup, that seems easier to reason about to me, just a little bit. Yeah, so basically feature is right there, toggle feature is here, value feature is there, value feature adds an extra prop. And then once we start getting into selective feature, it adds another prop called value type. And then, technically some of these others might end up having completely different value types that get a bit tricky. Really, selective and value features are similar. It's really gradual that adds like a thing that isn't on any of the others. So that could be easier. I really do think at this point we're just better off doing the JSON serializer approach instead of JSON decoder. It is. Yep. But you got to remember, feature type is also an enum implementing decoder. So we've got multiple enums that determine what value is actually going to be. Value is the only, like, not the only thing different, because gradual adds seed, which is not on any of the others. But we're doing multiple prop-based, like, subclassing. Okay. I can't add value to the feature protocol because we don't know what it is yet. Okay, so the whole associated type. Do you have, like, docs I can read? Because, yeah, posting code in Twitch does not work that well. So let's look at their generics. Oh, thanks, Bob. Yeah, the thing I will be showcasing will basically be, like, Git focused. So it's not going to really be about any tech or anything like that, but it's going to be about how you deal with and implement certain things in your Git flow. So, yeah. If you're willing to try any of that stuff new, kind of like as I mentioned to you before, but yeah, you'll know more about it on Monday. And yeah, I'm going to have to make content for it, and anyone here who has ever dealt with really heavy, like, bisecting type issues, or heavy, like, Git collaboration flows, etc., I'm going to really need to, like, chat with you about use cases and how we could solve some problems using tooling, possibly. Screenshots are tough, but one second. Oop, if I can type. Now, you won't be able to paste screenshots, but you could always upload it to something like Imager. And then you have link privileges now, so you could post that Imager link. I know it's like a wonky flow, but it's about all we can do on Twitch. Let's do another soda. Or not soda, lemonade. Discord does work, but it's not something I can easily share with stream because I don't really do Discord on my stream machine. Double check it. Okay. Oops. Didn't mean to do the shift enter, but whatever, that'll work. All right, so here's your example. You got your test protocol. Things back. Dude, Imager is trying to kill my PC. Come on, man. But yeah, so associated type, value type, some value, colon, value type. So here's the biggest thing I'm getting at. Yeah, 1 second, Cappy. Let me just look at one other thing real quick before I read your very large comment. No matter what, I need access to all these things. No, and I can see that. I can see the difference between the sum value part. I think the big problem I have is that I still need to get access to these deep different versions, right? So we're going to have two things that we need to do that based on. And then when I need to grab the full feature later, I don't necessarily want to have to cast when doing a lookup, right? So I'd rather just do a lookup within these individual buckets. And then it's easy, I know exactly what that type is. No, I get it. They are structs. I don't know what you mean by those could be structs. What we basically have is a lookup table for the ID of the feature to the feature itself. So they need to be a string lookup to the feature. So we need to have a map of a string to the thing. And because there is no built-in polymorphism for what features could be, we couldn't just say feature is going to be toggle, gradual, selective, like all of these, right? I think we still end up needing these sub-buckets to do the lookups in, right? So I don't know if what you're getting at with the associated type is worth it, because I end up still needing to do a lookup within these separate buckets, at which point I could just use the JSON serializer approach. Right? I'm not sure we actually gain anything from the associated type approach, because I still need to get access to the actual types for these in a one-to-one lookup kind of thing. And I want to try and do so without casting in the runtime logic. During the serialization logic, we have to cast, right? But that should be the only place that the types are ambiguous, just for the sake of the other code that we have to write around. We don't know what kind of feature it is, right? All we end up getting in our payload, let me show you the JSON for it. That might help make more sense. Yes, there are many of them. Right? So yeah, basically, I've got them grouped to where all the features are going to be gradual within the gradual, just for I have them grouped for testing. But you can mix and match the type of feature within this features bucket. So this could be a gradual, the next one could be a toggle, the one after that could be a selective. None of that is strict in any way, right? Because it's just a features lookup of an ID to the feature itself. And then I need to look within that feature itself to determine whether the feature is on or off, based upon some other logic, right? Such as the schedule, such as the gradual release hashing, things like that. So at this point, I'm not sure I actually gain anything from making the protocols as generic as the associated type thing would make. Right? Because we can mix and match what goes within this feature lookup. So that was why my approach was to use feature as a base, and then just using the lookup of that and the feature type, we can then go to the other structures that have the subsequent lookups for the other subtypes. No, not quite though, Infra, because if that specific field exists, that specific field's type could be totally different. And that's where associated type gets a little weird. Feature type tells us the type of feature it is, but only to a certain level. Once we get to a selective feature type, then there's other stuff that might be there, and the value type changes based upon it being just selective. Right? When it gets to a gradual will have seed, but toggle and no other thing has a seed. So yeah, there's a lot of like polymorphism going on that I think makes our data harder to model in some of these stricter languages. So I think no matter what though, I'm gonna need those different sub-buckets like we're showing here, right? Like I think all these sub-buckets are just necessary. They are in Go. I feel like the type system here in Swift is very similar to how Go is. All right, so now it makes more sense, right? At this point, would you go through the effort of doing the decodable, or would you just use the JSON serialization approach? Yeah, exactly, right? So at this point, to do any of that like polymorphism, I should probably just be doing like the map lookup approach, right? And yeah, any other Swift people out there, agree, disagree? I think this discussion is worthwhile just for me helping me understand this. In my code, do I need to know what feature it is when decoding? Yes, because I need to put it in these buckets. The decoding is, however, separate from when we do our lookup when you're checking a specific feature for if the feature should be on. So our should function ends up doing the lookup for us. No, Amadio, that's definitely unethical. No, definitely not. But yeah, I think that's the main gist. The decoding is separate from the place where we do our lookups. Yeah, no, that's not what I'm trying to do right there. Because again, like the individual fields, even with associated type, just become a bit wonkier. And I don't want to have a seed value on a thing that doesn't have a seed value. I think that's needlessly ambiguous. Yeah, no, I don't like it that way. Yeah. Yeah, I think I want to avoid that, infra. Yeah, I don't think I want to do the DTO approach. We can reconsider and refactor in the future if it becomes a headache, but I think in this case, I'd rather just do the manual deserialization. Yeah, and that's fine. We can always consider a refactor in the future once we have like our types and tests and other things. I don't think I actually need to do that. No, because we can construct environment just at the moment that we do the function for it. Yeah, I don't think we actually need to make these var. We'll see, but I don't think we actually do. Now, there are things on our client that need to be var, right? Like, these lookup tables are absolutely var, but the things within them can be lettable, because I don't think we're going to modify or mutate anything that's like the values of it. Just, you know, we're going to set the value as we do. I don't know. We'll find out as we do that part, though. I do need to use the restroom, so let me just BRB. I had to go pee.
like to be a pepper too.
So S2K infra, I think technically that's incorrect though. Right? Like these are var, but if we go look at this, in our init, we can modify things that are let, right? Our init is fine with something like that. As far as I understand it, this like equals that is a thing that happens automatically when you do the init, correct? So if we circumvent what the init's doing, then we're good. Yeah, so in our init, all we need to do is maybe create a var inside the init function, and then we can just set the prop for the environment to that thing that was like var within the init, but we don't need the struct to be var. Right, so we can create our map as a var within the init function. Construct it, do everything to it, and then when we set it to a struct, then it's immutable. Bam, right? I don't know for sure. I think that's the approach I'm going to try, and if it yells at us, then we can change it. Now, the big thing that gets me is that we're making protocol feature this. What if we create like base feature as our protocol, and then we have a feature struct that implements base feature? So then it would be just these same exact things, and then we still get like some type safety of if we implement these types wrong. I think I like that idea. So instead, we're gonna make this base feature. Right, we don't have a value on that. This one's fine with that, and then for all these others, we just need to do something like this. Right, so then, the only part of group here that's not decodable. Ooh, and actually, features here is fine. So then, features there is fine. I would still want to do the rest of it here, though. Yeah, hold on. And what'd you paste there? I would appreciate like a description maybe of what we're looking for there. No, I understand. I think you're wrong. Because I'm not trying to do dict test equals hello. At all. I'm not trying to do that whatsoever. I think you're misunderstanding the approach I'm going to take, and I'd say just sit back and wait. Because instead, I can simply do in an init, and this is pseudocode at least right now, var dict equals that. Sure, right? And I know this is terrible. This is just pseudocode. But then I could do features equals dict, right? Or the raw features. So I don't need to worry about this being a var if I simply assign the mutable thing, right? That's what I'm getting at. So I don't need to mess with the outer scope of what the struct is. I only need to assign it one time. I can't do any reassignment or any mutation of it. That's fine. I don't need to modify raw features. I only need to modify the dictionary I'm assigning to raw features first, and then I do the assignment. Right? That's what I'm talking about. So I don't need to change let to var in any of my struct outer props, right? Any consumer of those structs knows that they are immutable. This is only during the init. So that's what I'm getting at. I think you were missing that point completely. And that's what we would be doing. Yes, that's what I was trying to say the whole time. Ah, no worries, Sympathy. Yeah, I appreciate the lurk. That's fine, Infra. I just think your screenshot was unnecessary because you didn't understand what I was saying at first. Right, you're saying that let needs to be changed to var is not true. I don't need to do that. If I simply follow the approach of creating the thing as mutatable, separate from the prop that I'm assigning it to. Ah, there you go, Cappy. Yeah, sorry it took me so long to even get to it, but yeah, I think that's basically what you're asking. Amadeo is asking for something very similarly not what we would talk about. But yeah, hold on. So what you're talking about there, I don't know if you could do it for like MGBA or any of that stuff. What you're actually getting at is not necessarily a cheat though. Right? Some games expose extension APIs for you to do that. For you to do it for a Game Boy Advance game, that I'm not sure of. That's basically a cheat. But what you're getting at is instead, there are APIs that League of Legends exposes to Overwolf, where you could write an Overwolf extension for League of Legends that does all sorts of stuff that is similar to what you were asking there, Cappy. But I don't know anything about Game Boy Advance emulation, so I'm not sure. But certain games will expose APIs for you to make extensions. And that's totally allowed. Right? WoW is another good example. Right? Through CurseForge, you can create an extension. So, not inherently bad. Right? Just depends on the game, depends on, you know, the platform, things like that. Yeah, exactly. There you go. So yeah, it's more not okay if you're having to like read memory yourself or things like that. That's usually getting onto the grounds of probably creating a cheat and not something we would facilitate the chat about here. But yeah, thank you for reminding me, Cappy. I almost forgot about responding to you. So, sorry. And what's up, Sarah 3D? How you doing? So, okay. And then, yes, infra. I think what you're getting at is I can't use decodable right. So I just need to use the D-series. Right? I'm okay with that. I think that's kind of what we were digging into anyway, just for the lookup sake of it. So instead of from decoder, it would be from like JSON data or something. If you have a good link or example of the JSON data approach, that would be really useful, Infra, if that's okay. And no worries if not. We'll look it up. We'll figure it out. But yeah, if you have a good example of doing manual deserialization using init, hopefully, yeah, I'd love to see that. And we'll Google for it too. Yeah, I appreciate you chatting this out with me. I do appreciate it. Thank you. So, I don't think we need to go down the generics route. Structs can't inherit from other structs, so we don't need that. CurseForge was the bee's knees. Yeah, hold up, Sympathy. Are you aware that there's like an only devs group doing some WoW stuff? I don't know if you've chatted or joined, but Juicebox Hero, Glasses from Alt F4 Stream, Melky, whole bunch of people. Acorn, I know I'm forgetting some of the others too. They all have a group on the Season of Discovery in WoW. I know they'd be stoked to have you. I can connect you all up or whatever. I've got a character that's like level 20. I'd be happy to help power level you up to where I'm at, and then we can like co-level. Hopefully we can get someone else to help us power level a bit too. And let me shout out some follows real quick. Amanda, thank you. And Wabasuke. Is it more like a Wabiske? I've been playing enough Persona 3 recently that I think the S-U-K-E is Ske instead of Suke, right? Thank you, Persona 3, for improving my Japanese pronunciation. Alright, so I don't think this thread is relevant to what we're looking at. JSON deserialization example Swift without decoder. Alright, so they end up doing both for us. JSON object with data. Okay. And I would do that within the init? Or would I need a factory function? Yeah, I think we are going to go with like the old version of these things. And we'll do some casting within our init function, but then beyond that, there should be zero casting in our like other consumers of it. if you inject the JSON data. Okay. Got it. Yep, I've already got throws. Yep, we want it to be throwable. Yeah, we want everything to be throwable. Is there a throwable way of typecasting? Instead of like as question mark. Is there like a throwable way of casting something? Or if I just do try and then like my statement as whatever, does that make it throwable? My guess is yes, but I haven't tried it yet, and I should probably just try it. Basically, hold on. Let test equals let dictionary equals try, else throw. So we end up still needing to do, and it's like an if let, right? Okay, right. Okay. So there's no like simpler way of just doing like, you know, and this is going to be pseudocode again. Let foo equal try name as string, right? Oh, if I guess. Right, so okay, yeah, this is not throwable. Oh, I guess, let's do int, just as a thing. And this would always fail, ugh. Yeah, hold on. Let me just do this. Let bar equal, or bar, equal 42, and then if we were to do this as double, and then do bar, and I know we could just do double as a function instead, right? Right, they are unrelated types and it will always fail. Right, is the only way to really do that the if let or the guard let? Because I'd love for this syntax to be a thing, just to like bubble up the error as quick as possible, you know, without like the extra boilerplate. But as far as someone was saying, this like as question mark, if it were to fail, that actually like crashes the program rather than throwing, right? I think that might have even been you. You might have said that to me the other day, because you were seeing what, like, all the hacks we were doing with our boilerplate, like, over here. Right, oh, so it's as exclamation point that would be our failure, right? So try would wrap the as thing. Right? So if I were to do as exclamation point and then try exclamation point, do those actually crash? If you do as, you force it, so you need the question mark to do the throw. Got it. Okay. So the exclamation point is the thing that actually crashes, and that's a fatal error. Got it. That makes more sense in my head now. If I see an exclamation point, I can assume that it's a force that then causes the app to fail completely, rather than just bubbling up as a thrown error. Okay. That helps a lot. Yes, thank you for fixing my mental map of what those mean. Got it. So then here, like try, instead of try, I could just do try, but then this function would need throws. Right? As an example. Okay. Now, if you were to do try with an exclamation point, or not, sorry, if you were to do try in general, but as with the exclamation, would that still be fatal? Or does the try as a wrapper handle the fatal? Like, hold on, let me go back to. Right, doing as right there, which would always fail, this try, would that catch it? Or would this as always just be a fatal? I'm guessing try at this point, because it's a yellow squiggly, would not catch the fatal, right? And I just want to solidify that with, you know, just someone verifying from the ecosystem how that works. There's probably some REPL we could use to do this too, right? So we could probably pop open like a Swift REPL. I guess at that point I'd wonder if... Yeah, so what I'm getting at though is I would love to be able to throw this assertion and have a try catch it, but in this case, try would be for something that throws, and this would never throw, this would just be fatal. Right? So fatal and throws are always fundamentally separate. Is that a good, like, way of phrasing that? Yeah, no, you don't need to post any code. I'm just really looking for, like, the yes-no of, like, thrown and fatal, never the twain shall meet, right? If you're doing a fatal, like a force, trying it won't help you. Is that it? Or could you wrap a thing that is forced in a try and it would be caught? Oh, so you could do a do. Ah, I think we've seen the do syntax before. Okay. So, a fatal is catchable, but not in this context. Basically, right? Like, you'd always have to explicitly handle that error. Like, in the line or in the closest context possible. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Cool, thank you. I really do appreciate you explaining all this. That's awesome. Okay, cool. Do you have a good link? Yeah, do you have a good link for doing, like, the raw JSON thing? And yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, large chunks of code really don't work on Twitch. Like, that is the hardest thing to read ever. Like, dude. Ugh. Which is not your fault, that's Twitch's fault for not allowing us any formatting. Okay, yeah, let me look at that. I'm usually wary of a tutorials point article, but if you're saying that you're vetting this and it looks okay, I'm okay with it. So, hold on. I guess what I'm looking for as an example is, I'm pretty sure you can do like an init that takes a different from, which would relate to a different like JSON serialization function, right? Is there any way of implementing our logic here within the init, or do I just have to create like a higher order, it's not a higher order function, but do I need to create like a factory function kind of thing for this? I guess factory isn't even right. We can do it in the init. Now, within the init, are you saying I would basically just do like if let dictionary and then pass the dictionary to the init of the thing? Or is there a way to like make JSON serialization JSON object actually use the init? That's what I'm looking for as an example. I understand the fact that I could create just a function that does this part for me. And that might be what we do. I think that's how the Go code kind of ends up looking. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying that I could totally do that. Instead of decoder, it would be from... So they don't like that. I mean, I know that would be no good. They don't like that type either, maybe because I'm not importing it? Okay, so then I get what you're saying. If I do it as just a raw init, I would then... No, so hold on. Just wait, info. What I'm getting at is, in my function that's fetching this data, and then deserializing it, I would need to deserialize it into the dictionary first, right? And then I would pass that dictionary to the init function of the struct, right? What I'm getting at is there no JSON serialization function that would implicitly call the init for me. And that's what I'm looking for. Just to save like where I'm calling this at that point. From like the extra boilerplate. Okay, so there's no way to do that. I would have to just basically do it to the dictionary and then pass that dictionary. Okay, so I'd have to explicitly call the init rather than it being implicitly called by the serializer or deserializer. Okay, cool. Yeah, that helps a lot. I think that was the big question I had. Like, what would the ergonomics of calling that init be? Where would I call that init? Would it be implicitly done? Things like that. Okay, that helps. So now, based upon what we're talking about, we were looking at Swifty JSON earlier. As far as someone in the ecosystem is concerned, right? If you're consuming, you can have multiple inits in Swift. I get that. That makes sense. I don't know if that would help us here. Init from JSON data and one init from JSON dict. Okay. Got it. How do you feel about consuming a library that implements Swifty JSON? Are you okay with that, or is that a red flag, right? Would that pass your code review as far as dependencies are concerned? Because, to me, the fact that this hasn't been touched in 2 years, I consider a red flag, but maybe Swift doesn't break things fast enough for that to matter? Yeah, I get that. That's fine. Technically, A in that context is the named variable you're passing, right? So yeah, Swifty JSON was more relevant before the codable program. Okay. Yeah, no, and I get that. That's fine. Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, would you consider Swifty JSON a red flag for a library that you're going to bring into your code base? If you're going to release a mobile app and you wanted to use feature flagging, would Swifty JSON be a red flag for your implementation? And should I instead just do the ugly, this part, rather than this part? Or I guess, hold on, rather than this part. Is that third-party dependency something that you would look down upon. Years ago, you would implement it. I'm saying today. If you needed to implement or like consume a third-party library for feature flagging, if they were using SwiftyJSON and that was brought in with that dependency, would you be okay with it? Okay. That would be fine. Okay. Okay, I like that. And then, hold on, here's my next question. What is the difference between try and try? I guess... I see. So this one is using optional chaining for the single lookup, which is still kind of gross. Yeah, you'd check SwiftyJSON first, right? And then that would be just grosser, right? Because it hasn't been updated for a while, I am less keen on using SwiftyJSON. So I guess technically, if I avoided SwiftyJSON, would that be better? Even if it makes my code more verbose? Is it just better for introducing less extra dependencies? You're saying using SwiftyJSON might be easier and faster? So they do have a Swift 5 thing, right? Easier and faster to do it myself. Gotcha, right? Technically, they do say they're Swift 5 compatible with their latest release, but even then, just maybe as far as like a code audit, doing it myself avoids the dependency and makes that easier, probably, right? Whereas with Rust, if I was going to deserialize JSON, I'm going to use Sird, right? No one would actually push back on me using Sird because it's like the de facto standard for that type of serialization or deserialization. Whereas with Swift, now that codable and decodable exist, the extra dependency on SwiftyJSON probably just isn't worth it. And it would at least introduce some second guessing of whether using my feature flag tool would be good. Okay. I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. I really appreciate this discussion. Anyone else in the Swift ecosystem? Oh, Alamo Fire. All right. So this thing kind of does like its own deserialization, right? They have their own JSON functions too. The key is I don't want to do that because we've already decided from a top level that we're not going to make decisions on HTTP requests for users. For my testing, we might use Alamo Fire, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. But as far as like our get manifest, we actually take in a fetch function that lets the user do the fetch in any way they want, and then they just pass us the JSON string, basically. And then we deserialize that JSON string for them. So that at least gives someone the power of using whatever fetch library they want, right? And that's a pattern that we have in every other SDK as well. So I at least want to make sure that pattern is here. But okay, all right. That helps a lot. Thank you. Yeah, we're not going to use Alamo Fire for the shipped SDK. We will use it for our testing, probably. Right? Because we're going to need to make a fetch. We're going to need to grab that JSON as a string. I mean, technically the fetch would do that no matter what library we use. But is there another like fetching library you would consider instead of Alamo Fire? right? So URL session, Moya, or AF networking. AF networking, that's like the core Apple thing, right? Apple Foundation or something. Oh, URL session is cool. Okay. What is AF networking? Oh, hold on. Swift Alamo Fire versus AF networking. Is AF networking like the Objective-C version? I get it. Makes sense. That makes sense. So URL session is the core. Okay. Yeah, so I've done Objective-C back in the day, which is why like AF networking seemed like the Objective-C thing to me. But yeah, that's still Alamo Fire and their foundation thing, right? I get it. Cool. And what up, Aldous? How you doing? Mr. Samurai Sandwich. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how I did networking back in the day. I thought there was a higher level library than URL session, but I don't remember what it is. And I'm talking about like 2012, so I know I had something set up to fetch data from something, but I don't remember what any of it was. Not at all. You just started your data science boot camp and you have calculus homework? Yikes. Yeah, I'm not sure, Infra. I don't recognize AF Network from those days. So it may have been around since then, but maybe we weren't allowed to use it. Because we weren't allowed to use automatic reference counting either. I had to do like the manual retain release stuff during my certificate program. Yeah, I mean, so basically, like ARC, right? Automatic reference counting had just been released when the first, like, semester, I think they were semesters, when the first semester started. So we weren't allowed to use it just because they wanted to teach us proper memory management. Yeah, exactly, Aldous. What I'm actually really amazed at is a lot of the stuff I remember from Objective-C is still, like, somewhat applicable to Swift. Ooh, so infra. Yeah, here's a bit of history. I did an entire University of Washington 3-semester certificate program, the majority of which I did with a PC. And I remoted into virtualmacosx.com and used one of their workspaces to actually write out all my code, which meant I wasn't able to plug in a device to test any of the things I tried to release, which meant that I would submit my homework or my assignment, and the TA would come back with a stack trace of what failed when it ran on an actual device, because the simulator is not an actual device. And I would have to like work backwards from that stack trace to figure out what went wrong. Which actually made me really good at leaving myself telemetry within the logs that they would send back to me so I could actually work back what I failed. So I would get like, first one back, oh, I didn't leave enough logs. I'll go do another, leave a bunch of logs. And then bam, I'd get back my second like stack trace of like what failed after that. And then we only got 3 tries, so I had to really, really think about and make sure everything was working based upon the telemetry I left myself, which was amazing. Because I wasn't able to actually use the debugger, it made me really good at thinking about where my logs need to be and what values I needed to log in doing so. which is the magic of telemetry for every released application in the world at this point. Skype, etc. Like every app that you ship to someone's desktop or mobile device that then spits back a stack trace to you, you better hope you have the right logs to actually work backwards from there. And that was really, really good. That was one of the best, like, learning experience for understanding how to debug things without a debugger. Because you don't always have one. People who are dependent upon their debuggers are up shit creek without a paddle when they get into situations like that. And then another example and thing I want to point out is, back in the day, I also needed to parse QuickBooks data, QuickBooks point of sale data, right? Their inventory and a whole bunch of other things into a Magento inventory system. And QuickBooks point of sale was not that easy to work with. There was a PHP tool to do it, but if something failed out during your processing of the entire inventory, you better hope your logs are good. You better be logging out to a file and not rely upon just like a failure like screen like PHP debug would do, or Xdebug technically. So yeah, like, man, in the early days of me learning to be a web dev and doing some of these random projects, etc., I may have had to go through like the hardest possible version of these things, but it set me up for success. Because I recognize the value of a good log statement. Beyond just local debugging. Yeah, I need to make a YouTube video about that, right? For sure. It's going in the Trello board. Let's do it. Sometimes the debugger is not enough. Tell stories about my Objective-C learning, QuickBooks POS inventory learning to Magento. And then one more is, man, I'd love to chat with the dude that told me about it. But basically, someone told me about a debugging situation they had to do for the Skype client, right? The desktop Skype application. And they had to figure out a bug in Skype using only telemetry because they couldn't reproduce it locally. So maybe Skype story, if I can chat and get more details with the original speaker, I guess is the right. So yeah, I like that. We're gonna call it good. Bam. And yeah, I got way too much stuff to do. So yep, we'll make some YouTube content around that as well. But I think that would be pretty good, like, you know, I can do some storytelling. I can then do, you know, like talking through the theory and philosophy of it. Yeah, we got some really good YouTube videos we need to make, and I'm just slacking because I'm still trying to edit together this 5-minute video from 4 days worth of content. But using like the raw content rather than just like a retrospective. Retrospective would be easy. I'd be done already. But actually trying to like splice and cut the various sections from 4 days worth of content, that's a bit time consuming. But okay. think this week or so, I really need to focus and dig into finishing that 5-minute condensation of 4 days, and then work on my AST video, and then I can really do some of these other ones that I think would be actually easier to make. But I don't want to leave the AST video hanging too long, otherwise I just completely forget the test. So yeah, we're not going to use Swifty JSON. I'm okay with it. Though, I do kind of like some of their example code as like boilerplate we might look at. All right. So hold on. You can really recommend CS 193p all years with Paul Hegarty. Those are great. You've taken them since 2008 or 2009. But you've never actually worked with app dev. Oh, interesting. Hey, what's up, Peter? How you doing, Mr. Sir? Double check some other stuff. Look at my email just to be sure. Burlington, Washington? That's sure. Oh, no worries, Escamina. Yeah, no worries. Ooh, and you made a comment recently that I definitely forgot to react to, or even like respond to. Hold on. So hold on, right? If you're still here, no worries if not. You've been out for a sec and you were hearing about network. Reminded yourself that that Windows, not sure if it's Vista or 8, that sharing a file was harder than going to a store and buying an external hard drive and using it to share stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, even like, XP, Vista, bunch of those, it was tough. They've actually made it way easier these days, which I'm really happy with. There's definitely some steps to do for like Windows 10 and 11, but it is way better than it used to be at least, right? Yeah, exactly. It was a work group. Yep, I totally remember that. Now, you still do a little bit of that, but they have like an implied work group. So as long as you're not on some other like networking thing, like I get it. So yeah, have a good night. Later, Escamania. Thank you for chilling. Alright, so yeah. We're gonna use at least these examples to do what we need. Just to like, have an example of it. We're gonna need to do basically JSON serialization.json object as a function, which is fine. So then as we look at this, is data the right type, or would it be JSON data? I guess we end up needing to get rid of the from. And then data, shouldn't that come from somewhere? Do we not have foundation? Oh, we don't have foundation. And I think that's a big thing we ended up doing. Yep, so init data is then, I think, something we can do lookups with. Now, would it actually be data when we do our fetch, or would it just be a string? If I were to use Alamofire to do a fetch. No, we want it to be a string, because the user might not use Alamofire, and they might pass us the raw string object. So instead, again, we don't want to force Alamofire on the user, though, right? Yeah, but JSON is string, right? So here, instead, would I just say JSON? And then we handle the deserialization for them? I think that's the move, right? So we'd end up using data, right? Or no, .json object, right? I guess, what is data in this context? Oh, we need to do, oh, got it. Right, so data is just a byte buffer. We pass in the UTF-8. Okay, and then why does that part come in? Oh, because it's an enum, right? And then we need to pick like the right enum for it. Maybe I don't need options here. Yeah, we don't need the options. Got it. Oh, we need try. All right, and now we're not using it, so cool. Ooh, and everyone, yeah, I told some people about it earlier. I was just realizing that eventually for a 1.1 or something like that, allowing a user to inject an OpenTelemetry client, or I guess provider or whatever, to this would then mean that we can actually pass things to like OpenTelemetry from directly within, and then that's already building on the idea of A/B testing. So for Vexilla, having a direct wiring to an OpenTelemetry client would be huge, wouldn't it? I think that's actually like our 1.1 already. I really like that. Man, yeah, I'm just really pumped on the people I was talking to with sponsored content. And I'll shout them out right now, just because. Whether it doesn't work out does not matter. They have been so cool throughout the entire process. So yeah, if you guys need traceability and monitoring within what you're doing, I highly recommend Highlight. And this isn't even sponsored content yet, because they're not paying me yet. I'm just, yeah. We could eventually do sponsored content, but right now, I'd rather just hype them up. They are very awesome. So yeah, if you need session replay, error monitoring, logging, traces, and you can even self-host it. Super cool people. I wish them as much success as possible. And yeah, we may end up doing some sponsored content with them that I think would be really cool. But yeah, no worries, Infra. Dude, thank you so much for chiming in, putting up with me being less fun to talk to through chat. If you were here on voice, I bet it would have been way easier, right? But yeah, appreciate you. Thank you for putting up with me slowly getting. Yeah, you should definitely start streaming. The more people streaming in the category, the better. Yep. And yeah, learning server-side Swift, would that be with Vapor or some other thing? I even have a Vapor sticker on my laptop, I think. Because I looked into it years ago. Nice! Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Yeah, make some YouTube videos about it even. You definitely should. Or make a book, or yeah, like there is definitely a need for content around that. I'd be curious about how releasing Swift code to AWS Lambda would work, because we don't see Swift represented, and I know you're trying to get going, but hold on, max day, right, Lambda perf, Swift isn't even in here. I'd love to see how quickly Swift boots up and like how quick your like cold start times could be. That'd be really cool. Right? Just to get this in there. Like, yeah, maybe fork their repo. Right? Create some Swift implementations. Could be really cool content building that out too on stream. So yeah, you should definitely stream. Yeah, for anyone else that hasn't seen this, here's the link. I should probably even post that over to other stuff. I know you're hosting all yourself, but I think Lambdas are a major use case that needs to be considered when considering server-side languages, right? So if you were to help contribute to that, you would actually really help contribute to adoption for Swift in more than just maybe like a monolith ecosystem. But again, get your own sleep, get some sleep. We'll see you again soon. I'll be here tomorrow. AWS Lambda is a function as a service. You only pay for it when it gets used. So I have an API that's running right now that incurs zero overhead cost other than Route 53, which is 50 cents a month. That's awesome, isn't it? That's pretty cool. So basically, Lambda is a function as a service where you only pay for the runtime of that function. Then things like cold starts become important. And then, right, if you look at, let's just say the Rust version of it. Rust, 15 milliseconds for a cold start. meaning that they had to spin up an entirely new instance for you. Whereas it's 1.45 milliseconds for a hot start, meaning like the instance was active. But you're not paying for the instance being active, you're only paying for the runtime, right? So your function running is the only, like, the start and stop that you care about. So the quicker that executes, the better. Right? I do think you pay for cold start time, which is something to consider, but if you're using Node.js for your Lambdas, yeah, 9 milliseconds versus 1.45 milliseconds, who cares, right? That is such a marginal thing. But 137 milliseconds versus 15, that is a way bigger difference there. And if your code really needs to worry about how long it takes this function to spin up for concurrency and things like that, well then yeah, like, Rust might be a way better option. Now keep in mind, there is like a newer Node runtime for AWS Lambda that actually optimizes for the cold start. And at that point, yes, I'm not sure if that's it. I think that's what 11RT here is, but I don't actually remember, and I'm not positive. So I can't speak to that nearly enough. But just recognizing that there is like a new Node.js runtime Amazon has shipped that I don't think is here. Actually, hold up, I didn't even see it. Apple Swift 5.8 is right there. So the startup time of Apple Swift, which I hadn't seen before, this is brand new to me actually. Right? It's like a longer cold start runtime, but man, the hot start runtime is really fast. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Like really fast. Whoa. The fact that Python, even 3.8, is also just as fast of a hot start runtime compared to Rust, that is magical. So if you're okay with cold starts, your hot starts being fast is totally worth it. So yeah, anyway, have a good night. What's up, Mikhail, or is it Michael? I feel like I might have asked you before and I forgot. Yeah, later. Thank you, Infra. Again, I appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out. We're going to keep hacking at our thing, albeit a bit slowly. And, yeah. I think the discussion of figuring out our proper approach to the deserialization, that needed to happen, and I appreciate the conversation. So thank you. But yeah, Michael or Mikhail? I'm gonna guess Michael. Michael the Second. Are you Michael too? I'm joining an organization where I will be Chris number 3. Michael too? You didn't think about that? Yeah, no worries. It's fine. I'm just curious. Michael the Second, if you prefer, like, if brevity isn't your thing. The Dude or El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing. Oh, it's 3 I's? Why didn't you just do 3 L's? Was that taken already? Wait, was Michael with an extra 3 L's was already taken too? Oh no. That is definitely a Twitch problem. Oh, how many Michaels out there just keep adding L's until it works? I'm really curious about that. Did you just, like, find some kind of conspiracy? I'm curious how many L's it goes to until there's one available. Oh, you got Michael on cal.com? That's legit. Oh, that's super cool. I'm gonna go try and register Chris. Just add L's and I's, possibly mixing and matching until it works. I get it. Yeah. I get it. That's awesome, though. I like that. That's clean. And yeah, cal.com, super cool. I really like the fact that they reworked their stuff to Nest.js. I might try and reach out to them eventually to like do like a collab stream to implement Highlight into their product because they're using Nest. That'd be cool. Right? Even as just a prototype. It's been a while since we've seen Sean Bry in here. Hope I didn't scare him away. Let me double check one thing. All right, they still follow at least. Yeah, they're good. They're good. Man, been a super long time since they chatted, though. Like, yeah, almost 3 months. Wow. Oh, you got to contact sales for info. I mean, the biggest thing I would say is they are very down to earth. Like, you could send a PM to Peer, and he will actually respond. Like, he's a good dude. Yeah. Even if you don't think you're worth his time, he will reply. Like, he is that down to earth. They're that kind of company. So yeah, I'd say just reach out to him. For sure, man. Even just send a message on Twitter if you have to. I'd say totally worthwhile. Like, very down to earth. And it might not be Peer, it might be Pear. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I probably messed that up. But yeah, definitely reach out to me. I know, typically, there's a quote I adhere to. Whenever they have a contact us for pricing, you can't afford it, right? The moment they do one of those, yeah, they're looking at the enterprise. Yeah, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. You know, like, yeah, if you're actually questioning it, which is a bummer. I think instead it's a slightly different case for Caldo. So yeah, definitely reach out to them. You could also host it yourself. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Oh, there you go. Premium name reservation and everything. Nice. Hell yeah. Yeah, Cal is great. Like, so much better than Calendly and, like, all those other things. Yeah, cal.com is killing it by just being transparent and cool and open source, for sure. Yeah. But I would say, like, have you considered self-hosting? Right? What is their license? I don't even think they're BSL licensed. I think they're just full-on MIT, right? Yeah, like self-hosting on a server you own. I'm pretty sure you can just do that. Let's go look at the license just to be sure. Ooh, all right, so it is GNU version 3. So it's the GPL v3. So if you make any modifications, rather than just consuming their API, you might be on the hook for releasing that publicly. But if you just treat raw cal.com as an API you're consuming on your own self-hosted thing, and you're just extending it based upon the API they give you, you're probably okay, right? That's what actually like GPL is for. So as long as you don't modify cal.com, you could actually consume your own cal.com server. And you're good to go. Like, for sure. 1000%. Just host your own instance. Have at it. Exactly. At least for, like, MVP. Once you get to the point of trying to scale, maybe them handling scaling for you is worth the cost. Right? Right? Especially if you end up going enterprise and getting like an SLA, then them going down is money in your pocket. But at least during your prototyping, you can just do the self-hosting thing. Yeah, something to think about, but up to you. Just throwing it out there. I love chatting about entrepreneurship. For sure. I've been heavily invested in entrepreneurship since I was in elementary school, when I was selling sports cards to people. If I pulled a Michael Jordan card, I knew I could sell it to this one kid that was a Michael Jordan. Exactly, yes. If you build out based upon your self-hosted thing and then need to switch, theoretically it should be up to date and it should totally work. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I totally think that's the right approach there, Michael. Yep. How much could a banana cost, Michael? What, $10? Sorry, I don't know why, like, your name reminds me of Arrested Development. All right. Yeah, we're doing a few too many of these. So Zerk, you're saying Highlight.io looks similar to PostHog. Yeah, you're probably not wrong. I think there's different things. Right? There's different aspects to it, and I think there's different focuses for them. PostHog is pretty cool. And both are actually funded by Y Combinator, so it's like a little trickier. It's funny, you bought a domain to make a simple feature flagging service like last month, since things like Launch Darkly and all that are bonkers expensive. Then you saw I was making one, and you love Arrested Development. Hell yeah, such a good show. Yeah, so we've had this like static file-based version of Vexilla kind of in the works for a couple years, and at that time I was not aware of Growthbook. Technically, Growthbook might solve some of your problems for feature flagging anyway, because they do the static file thing. The one thing you don't get, though, is stuff like scheduling, right? So feature flag scheduling, we can actually do for free because we're treating the client as the source of truth, which means, like, yeah, scheduling becomes really simple because it's just an evaluation of a schedule. I would say Growthbook is like the number one thing I would consider that didn't exist, or at least wasn't as well known when I was starting to make Vexilla, and at this point, I still think Vexilla has value because, number one, we support scheduling for free by default because I have no infrastructure. You host the static file flag, like JSON yourself. And then beyond that, we are actually focusing on like the GitOps approach to things too. So if you want to change your flags for that static file JSON somewhere, you can get the audit tracking of who changed what and when just using Git, which becomes really useful too. So I think we're providing a hybrid of what a bunch of other feature flag tools out there try and provide. Growthbook, I think, is the closest to what we're trying to do, but the GitOps approach is like Hypertune, and then the amount of SDKs we support is way more than Hypertune. So at this point, like, I think Vexilla does solve a valid niche that I would love to see proved out in a bunch of ways and tested and used, and yeah. Eventually, the exit for Vexilla would be probably just selling it to some other company, but in the meantime, we can definitely deliver value. And I think that's the important part to me. If anything, it's just fun to build it because I get to work in a bunch of different areas. At the end of the day, I plan on having 14-ish officially supported SDKs because I don't have any servers to actually run. Ooh, so that makes sense, Michael. The biggest thing I want to say about Vexilla, and you can possibly do it with Growthbook, is that because it's just a JSON file, it works on intranets as well. So if you have like an internal network, a private network that no data escapes to the outside world, and you can't even request data from the outside world, man, Vexilla actually solves that problem for you because it's just your client accessing any locally addressable URI, which becomes really useful for internal networking, etc. So I think there are absolutely niches that I need to start promoting Vexilla for, but we need to like release out these SDKs first. And we're really close. Like, really close. I just want to get the this Swift version done and the OCaml version done, and those are the only languages that require, if you want to do a release of a new version, they're the only ones that actually require like tagging your versions in like your Git. So your job just set up feature flags and the POs and stakeholders landed on Azure. I get that. I chatted with someone who I can't name and I can't explain why well, I can say a little bit why. They were an employee at Microsoft, and they basically said, I think 5 years ago, when they left Microsoft, they were still already trying to kill Azure DevOps, right, in favor of GitHub. So eventually, like, Azure DevOps might cease to exist. It might go like the Google route of killing a product that people are still using. So technically, Azure DevOps as like a repo management tool would be killed in favor of GitHub because Microsoft owns GitHub too. And that was like an internal push that Microsoft is even doing. So Microsoft, previously before they acquired GitHub, was using Azure DevOps, and I think more and more teams are actually pushing to use GitHub for their like repo management, etc. Yes, that is the big thing, right? That's why they can't kill ADO just yet, because Azure DevOps, as far as like a project management tool, could still live on past the Git hosting, etc. Right? And that's like the major part. Eventually, the Git hosting might not be Azure DevOps, which means you might not even be doing CI/CD through Azure DevOps, because they're going to push some of that towards GitHub Actions. Yeah, so I would say Zerk. Again, yes, from what I've heard from other people that are familiar with internal workings at Microsoft, they are actively pushing teams to use GitHub instead of ADO. And eventually, once all of Microsoft's internal stuff is moved over to GitHub, for at least those portions of things, other parts of ADO might be sunsetted. And that gets really scary. So much so that if you want to keep using it, TFS, that's the name of like their Git stuff. Oh, wait, hold on. You switch to Git from TFS. Okay, which makes you portable to any other Git provider. Got it. TFS, that was like Team Foundation Server or something like that. That was like the original like Microsoft like Git alternative. And now ADO supports like Git instead, right? Okay. Glad you moved to a startup. You get to use all the new sexy tools like Linear. Yep. Yeah. Company I will be starting with in just a week. We are really looking at things like Linear and some of those other things as integrations. I can't yet. I could, but I'd rather just wait. Let's let it work out. Like, heaven forbid, what if it goes sour in the next week? I'd be so bummed. And I wouldn't want it to, like, paint negatively on the company because everyone has been so cool to work with so far. Like, so responsive. Like, last Friday, I sent a, hey, I'm willing to accept the offer message. And 2 hours later, I got a response. Like, a phone call. And they were like, I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to reply. I was traveling. I was like, it's only been 2 hours. Like, come on. Like, they are very respectful of time. It's basically a startup. It's a smaller company. But it was really cool. Just like, yeah, the recruiter, everyone I've interviewed with, like, they've been so awesome that I really like. So yeah, I'm looking forward to shouting them out next Monday. No, it's not ramp.com. I did apply to Ramp, though. And yeah, sorry, Candy Crush. But no, it's not Ramp. Yeah, I don't know the exact number at the company I'm talking to. I'd guess it's somewhere between like 50 and 100. But that's totally a guess. I'm not sure. But no, it's not ramp.com. I forget, what does Ramp even do? I looked at Ramp's interview process and I noped out, actually. Oh no, it's dev focused for sure. Yeah, it's like a dev product, which I'm really happy with. Oh, Ramp is a spending thing, easy to use cards, etc. They seem really cool. Yeah, for sure. But no, it's not Ramp. I mean, 4-wheel, I don't know how far I want to get into the 20 questions of it. Yes, they are, I mean, it's still technically a startup, I think. Hold on, let me go look at it on Crunchbase. All right, so Crunchbase says 51 to 100 people, private company. Doesn't say what round they're in. As far as funding. Yeah, it only says their acquisitions. So it doesn't list their actual, like, where they got their funding from. So yeah, it's most likely private equity and stuff that, because it's a private company, they don't have to disclose. So yeah, not sure. Less job security, theoretically, yeah. Yeah, I was just at a very small company. I was just at Fairwinds. Awesome company, best job I've ever had. I really like the smaller company thing. Besides, like, the client agency I used to work at, I have only worked at, like, a life insurance company that's a large company, but our team was, like, a small startup within that company, which made it, like, the worst of both worlds. It meant that when we had to do, or we wanted to do something infrastructure-wise, we had to have, like, the CTO of an insurance company sign off on it because they had dictated from the top down that we would use Azure for everything. When instead, if we had just switched to, like, Amazon for the thing we wanted to do, we would have been done. But we were trying to implement a thing that I don't want to get too deep into that basically... I spent 6 months trying to get them to okay a thing that still wasn't okayed by the time I left. So yeah, giant life insurance company. No good. But also, a startup within a giant life insurance company, which means that you're doing the nothing is as we say it is as a startup kind of thing, with still like the rigmarole of an enterprise. It was the worst. Oh, it was the worst. I started building out our front end using mocks that the back end team had passed me, and then the back end team completely changed how the APIs would work. Some of these APIs would respond with a 404 when it was really an authentication issue. Like, there was so many problems with it because it was still like startup-y. But then, like, when we needed to change something infrastructure-wise, we had to involve upper management. Like, it was just the worst of both. It was the absolute worst of both. Yeah, exactly Twitch. Twitch marketer, exactly Michael, exactly Zerg. Like, you all get it. Yeah, for sure. Ugh. Like, tough problems. And I know this turned into basically a chatting stream. I love this part of it too. Sometimes startup within a corporation can work, but other times you end up dealing with the worst parts of both. Yeah. Honestly, like, the product we were making and the level of influence I had over everything was awesome. I was like the lead front-end engineer, technically the sole front-end engineer, for a long time. It meant basically I had to craft the document that decided why we picked Angular over React and other things and blah, 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 like whole bunch of reasons. I got to, like, in my document shout out the fact that the version of Angular consumed in public is actually the version of Angular consumed by Google, whereas, like, the version of React consumed by Facebook is not the version of React that we see. The version of React we see is a good 6 weeks behind things, bare minimum. Bare minimum. So yeah, that was at least like a major something, right? Hey, it works for this enterprise, and they are dog-fooding it at the main of their branch level. Whereas React is meh, right? Not to say React is bad, I use React all the time, you see it here on stream. But yes, when you're trying to opt into something that has support and will be updated in a way that major organizations can still consume it, Angular actually has a better track record of incremental adoption. But yeah, real quick, let me go use the restroom. I'll be right back. See you in a second. Okay, and I'm back.
Explícalo a mí.
So, again, like, there are specific reasons to pick one or the other. If you're really concerned with hiring, yeah, you would pick React, because there is a greater, broader pool of developers that know React. However, and this is, like, why it didn't make as much sense at the company we were at, if you want to be able to incrementally update and, like, follow the upgrade process that Angular follows, then that makes a lot of sense. So if you're in a way to, like, rigidly structure how often you do upgrades, then you're in a really good place for picking Angular. Because every 6 months, a new major version of Angular ships. The even number version of Angular is the LTS version, right? So then maybe like once a year, if you can actually convince your company and PMs and managers, etc., to do an upgrade every 6 months in which we fix whatever's broken from the upgrade process and we spend a good 2 weeks, maybe even another sprint after that, making sure the upgrade process is smooth, you can get the latest and greatest real easy without changing basically anything. React has no such consistent upgrade process cadence. Typically, it might take even less to do like a major version upgrade for Angular. But like the worst case scenario is it takes you a sprint or two. As long as you have it on the docket that every 6 months we evaluate the new version, we try to upgrade, see what breaks, try and fix it, then you're good to go. Because that's actually the cadence that Google adheres to. There isn't a new version of Angular that ships with a new feature enabled that doesn't pass all of Google's internal systems. Every major version of Angular has to be tested with all of Google before it can actually get merged into main. So there's some number, right? When a PR that's been approved and is okay for CI/CD, a PR such as that goes and spins up something like 10K worth of hardware within Google to test everything. And it has to pass tests within every other sub-team, etc. within Google before it can actually be merged into the main of Angular. And that's huge. That's pretty crazy. What up, Shy? How you doing? Mr. Sir. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to wait for the ad break to end. People should be back from the ad. Basically, what I was saying is, enterprises trust Angular because Google trusts Angular. And Google's version of Angular is the same version that we consume. So that's why there's a fundamental difference. The version of React that we consume is not the version of React that Facebook is using internally. Yeah, for sure, Jarrell. Yeah, what's up? So yeah, I hope that made sense, Michael. That's like the main justification. It's not just preference. It's more about like the upgrade cadence and what is private versus what is public. And then also, like, how much you care about hiring. I know from experience, hiring for Angular devs is actually pretty tough. Now, I'm not expecting to hire a junior or even mid-level engineer that's an expert with Angular. I have been involved in those, like, interviews, though, as, like, the senior lead for my front-end team at a enterprise company. Life insurance company. And basically, hiring people, I would not expect Angular experience. But I would absolutely look for, hey, if I'm hiring a senior engineer to replace me, which is what I was actually doing that they didn't tell me, but I kind of knew because I was contractor at the time. If I'm hiring a senior engineer to replace me, they should at least know the right place to evaluate auth credentials and things like that. And the keyword we're looking for is interceptor. Even for a React app, your HTTP fetching interceptor is the thing that is responsible for logging the user out if they have a bad token. Nowhere else in your code. You don't check it per route. That would be insane. You don't check it per request. That would be insane. You use the interceptor that applies to every request, and then you maybe like do an allow or a deny list for requests that don't need that, or you just instantiate a different HTTP request, like wrapper, right? I didn't interview a single person that understood. Of a bunch of senior engineers that a recruiting agency passed to us. Yeah, it is middleware. It's a middleware to your HTTP client rather than middleware to your overall application. Yes, interceptors are magical and incredibly useful, and any senior engineer that's never worked with them should not be leading development on any application. So Lobo, what you're getting at is all of those things are only available if you allow that extension to do so. When you go to install an extension, it will say, are you okay with these permissions? And for the most part, if I see that, nope, and I don't install the extension, unless it's something I know. And then, hold on, let me reread some of these. So Candy Crush, I'll get to it. Let me read Jarrell's thing real quick. Contractor built app, lots of ESLint warnings, you're cleaning up the application. All that's left are 36 use effect dependency array warnings. You're worried about just blindly adding the dependencies into the arrays because of what might happen with re-renders. So one thing to remember, Jarrell, that is incredibly important is that your setters for a use state, they are stable, and they don't actually need to be inside of your dependency array. Adding them doesn't hurt them, because they are stable. So, right there, you could probably just, if there are lint warnings, you can add those functions to your dependency array, and it won't actually impact things. However, if it's not a setter for a use state, then you need to really consider how often is this data changing, and you need to look at it. But in many cases, a lot of those warnings that you're going to get are actually just setters for a use state. And those are not required. Those are actually stable. Yep, no worries. Now that said, it won't actually cause a problem because they are stable. So I would say, yeah, if it asks for them, just do it. It's okay. It's fine. Easy enough. Okay, and then last comment. I know a lot. I mean, I stream a lot. So Candy Crush. And yeah, honestly, talking about this stuff is one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things. It's why I go to meetups to chat with other people that really care about these things too. It's really fun. I love this part. That's why streaming is so fun. I love this part. Technically correct is the best kind of correct. Alright, so real quick, Candy Crush, let me get to your comment. Used to work at one place at the time when React was shifting from classes to hooks. Company tried to do that too, and it was so yucky. You feel like the hooks mental model was so novel at the time compared to anything mainstream. Yeah, so Candy Crush, I kind of agree. I think teaching the class hook, like the life cycle hooks of a class in React is actually easier to teach than hooks. because it's actually explicit. When this component mounts, do a thing. When this component should update, do a thing, right? It's more explicit, whereas like the hooks are borderline implicit. When instead, could you implement your own custom hook for it? Like, could you implement a component did mount hook? You definitely could. You absolutely could. It's just the empty dependency array, and you're done. But then there's things you gotta depend on. So yeah, I still miss how easy that component lifecycle was to teach. Right? They borrowed that entire component lifecycle from Ember. And Ember borrowed that from Objective-C. Right? Objective-C had the same basic hooks for mounting, unmounting, draw, draw is basically render, right? An Objective-C component for UI stuff obeys actually the exact same lifecycle that we know of from Ember, React class components, Knockout, like all sorts of stuff. That lifecycle is so easy to teach and understand. And all of our modern JS frameworks took those lifecycle hooks from Sprout Core, which took it from Objective-C. It's magic. It's pretty cool. I'm really happy that I got to like grow up and learn through that entire ecosystem of things. But nowadays, yeah, that context is actually lost on me, which is kind of annoying. As a real quick example, Ryan Florence actually wrote Ember routing back in the day. Technically, probably him and Michael Jackson. Not the Michael Jackson you're thinking of. And then, when they both decided React was the thing they wanted to focus on, they both wrote React Router that heavily mimicked the implementation of Ember Router. Because Ember Router was like the de facto standard for front-end routing at the time. Better than any other router implemented. AngularJS Router, right? The one that actually became known and used and whatever before Angular 2 came out, heavily inspired by Ember Router. Ember Router was actually like the prototype for every other major useful router in the ecosystem. So yeah, I actually feel heavily privileged that I was learning dev while a lot of these things were still like solidifying. I feel like my timing was perfect. I spent 10 years being a snowboard bum, which means I didn't deal with the early 2000s version of how routing should work, or even like the 2000s before 2010. None of that stuff mattered to me because it wasn't relevant because I was just snowboarding, man. And then when I got into it, I still had the context of what came before, but I was able to use what was new and awesome. See, I feel like my timing was perfect. When Ajax was new. Oh, no good, Nick. Brutal. So Candy Crush. A lot of those people are arguing for not applications, right? They're hoping to build out monolith applications with JavaScript just enhancing what you see. Yeah, I remember Knockout. Yeah, I've done progressively enhanced Knockout forms. Totally. I think a lot of the people who are average Joes on Hacker News actually like have rose-colored glasses for those days, or they're too new to remember that this stuff isn't new. If you want to just gradually enhance or progressively enhance the template that your server-side rendered, go for it. But you're not building an application in the way that I'm thinking about applications. A single-page application for a dashboard is going to be a way better user experience than the multi-page application version of it. Just inherently, for sure. Dashboard applications don't need server-side rendering. Dashboard applications don't need all sorts of stuff that Next is trying to push on. They just don't. Single-page applications consuming a REST API, or REST-ish API, are still actually the majority of applications made in the world. So don't let Next try and like gaslight you into thinking you need SSR. You don't. Static site generation? Maybe. Single page application? Sure. SSR is the edge case in the middle that very few people actually need. If you have per route bundling, you're already there. You're good to go. For a dashboard, you don't need SSR. And dashboards are the most common JavaScript application made. The most common web application made. Anything optimizing around, yeah, cool, SPAs are their thing, but we can do other stuff, like that other stuff isn't necessary. As long as you have per route bundling for your SPA, you've satisfied the 90% use case. SSR is useful if you want to do like a car classifieds, like type of application, where it's all publicly indexable and searchable and all that stuff, without having to log in and do that stuff. If you can require a login, you don't need SSR. The people doing HTMX would rather waste CPU cycles on their server rendering templates rather than just getting shit done, right? The scalability of your backend server, if it's rendering templates, is actually way worse than just a REST API or REST-like API that just spits out JSON or protobuf or whatever. I don't care if it's JSON or protobuf or whatever. That's an implementation detail. All I'm saying is their backend should be completely decoupled from their front end. And at the time where you end up needing a backend for front end, you know it and you're good to go, right? Most people are not at the Netflix level to worry about backend for front end. They just aren't. So Candy Crush, I think what you're getting at is that Next.js is actually, its most common case is actually backend for front end, right? BFF. So if you have, right, think about being at like the Netflix level. You have a canonical REST API. To get someone to modify that REST API goes through so many checks and balances and different like layers of hierarchy that it's just not worth it, right? Whereas instead, could you just write your own like back end for front end that glues together a bunch of this, and then your front end just consumes your proxy back end with better like types, etc., that match what your front end is doing, so you don't have to do nearly as much like data massaging from the front end? That's the magic of it. Your middle layer of your back end for front end does that data massaging to turn it into one request from your front end. And then boom, you're good to go. That is Next.js's best case scenario. That is what Next.js is made for. But Vercel would have you think that that's the common case, and it's not the common case. It just isn't. It's not the common case of applications made out in the world. The common case is a dashboard that you have to log into to even see anything. At that point, that should just be a single page app. And then maybe like one or two back-end for front-end endpoints. I mean, it'll grow as the application grows. But all of those back-end for front-end endpoints are just consuming your canonical, whole organization-wide REST API. So this like separation of concerns is like the fundamental thing to think about and understand. Your front-end dashboard app does not care about every single entity that the back-end REST API exposes. Yeah, so Candy Crush, there are companies that have done it. Until recently, Cal.com was using Next.js for their API, and then they were using a separate Next.js app for their actual dashboard. But they were using Next for their actual API. That's insane. They have since refactored to using Nest, not Next, Nest, as their REST API, and that is way better, right? So much less RAM to consume when you're trying to spin it up locally. So 4Wheel, why would they do that? Because it's really quick and easy to spin up and get started. You can like prototype and do a whole bunch of things. It's only bizarre when you think about them in a vacuum. At the end of the day, probably recognize that the initial MVP for Cal.com was all of it in just one Next.js app. And then eventually they were like, hey, we need to split these out. Well, the amount of effort it would take to rewrite the entire API, no, let's just move all of our API endpoints to a different Next.js instance. And then we can separately scale that Next.js instance. And then separately scale our front-end instance consuming it. And then eventually someone's like, hey, why are we paying the overhead of Next.js when we could just do a REST API using Nest? I will point out that Cal.com, even their front end, would actually massively benefit from server-side rendering. Because for you, as a consumer of someone else's calendar, to load up their calendar, that's not behind a login. You're not even logged in. You're just submitting a form and you submit your email and you're registering for a time in that. So it needs to actually be a proper form that you submit that is separate from like the JS logic of it, etc. Like there's definitely some JS logic to it, I'm sure. But the more that you can make progressively enhanced, the better. So yeah, I think really if you look at the life cycle of how Cal.com was probably originally created versus how it could grow into what it needs to be, they've actually done a really good job of like incrementally adopting technology as they need it. I think Cal.com is like the best case scenario of, yeah, launch your startup with Next. Who cares? Just get it running, man. And then as you need to scale, yeah, the obvious progression from that is ditching Next for everything but where you need it. I think Cal.com has actually been like the most appropriate example for all of it. And yeah, we didn't get nearly enough code done today. I feel like the discussion we had was the best part of this, right? Understanding that we need to do the JSON string approach, we're going to have to call init on our own manually is huge. I think that's totally worth it. Let's chat a bit more. You really enjoyed signals from Solid when you tried it. The whole nesting signals thing felt very productive and easy to implement, although you feel like for more complex application, it could become very messy. So yeah, the biggest thing to remember is that signals are not new, right? They're basically like computeds from Vue. They're like, like MobX. Like all these things have existed. It's fine, like they're not a big deal. All these things have existed already with different names. Thoughts on Fastify versus Nest? I don't care, actually. I really don't give a shit. Once you get into like the realm of picking an API framework, specifically to build an API, I have zero preference. I'm just using Nest as an example. I have zero preference for like actual like API frameworks. Pick one based on your language and you're good to go. I don't care. If you're doing PHP, then yeah, probably Laravel or Symfony. Whatever. right? If you're doing JavaScript, yeah, probably Nest.js, maybe Fastify. Like, I don't know, man. I don't care. At that point, the differences are going to be actually so small that you're barely going to recognize, and you could actually refactor between all of them real easy. But you need to recognize that separation of concerns first before you can even consider adopting a different API framework. Express is fine. Now, granted, Express leaves a little more for you to do, whereas Nest has, you know, database abstractions built right in versus you gluing in some other thing like Mongoose or whatever. I get it, right? But the key is, once you get into that level of things, it becomes very, like, opinionated, and I am less opinion-based. I like the fundamental, like, technical differences between these. Right, controller service paradigm. Right, controller service versus, like, handler and middleware. Like, tomato. Right, the syntax might change, but the idea is the same. So yeah, I really stopped caring once we recognize the proper separation of concerns between backend and front. But yeah, we're at 6:30, you know. We're basically in, like, party week before I actually need to, like, really buckle down. I want to make sure I don't overdo it too much. I'll definitely have another beverage over on other stream. I want to make some bacon and eggs for dinner tonight. But we should go raid someone. And yes, I know we didn't get a whole lot done code-wise. We had a call in between things as we were, like, ramping up. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah, I have some bacon I need to use up before it goes bad, basically. It was discounted because it was already close to going bad, so I need to, like, make sure I use it. But yeah, Space Case. I want to point out, though, like, you know, like Nest.js or any other API framework, excuse me, like, totally good, man. For sure. I am less of a zealot against any of those things. Use whatever you want. Nest.js, Fastify, Express, Happy, right? There's plenty. Use any of them. Krasner, before I get going, you might have been away while I was chatting with Infra about how I'm planning on doing this. They had mentioned that basically we could probably restructure a bunch of these things where instead of using a protocol and a struct and a bunch of other things, we could just create one top level, like, DTO data type object or whatever, and then use, like, props to decide upon it using, like, associated types and generics and a bunch of that jazz. I don't want to do that. So instead, we're gonna opt for just the JSON version of doing these things, where, excuse me, sorry for the burp. We're just gonna have this, like, init JSON, and we take a JSON string and we do some stuff with it, and then we start referencing and doing it and populating this struct because of it. And then from that point, we're good to go. So yeah, we're not gonna leave too much in the eyes of the decodable, and instead we'll just manually call, like, the init with, like, the string that we get passed. But I think that gives us a little bit more power of what we want to do and having to worry less about some of these other things. So I don't even think I need coding key here, because we can just do our init without it, right? So yeah, we're gonna go basically like the old school Swift approach. Yeah, so exactly, Krasner. Basically, as far as DevX goes, all of this is abstracted away from our consumers of our library. right? Consumers of our library will never actually touch this init function. It's abstracted completely away from them. It's all internal to the SDK that we release. All they do is they are responsible for fetching, giving us the string, and then passing the string to our callback. And then bim bam boom we're good, right? So yeah, our consumers, this is nothing they will ever see. This is only for me as a consumer within my own client. So yeah, exactly. I think our developer experience is totally fine because none of this is something a dev would actually see for our SDK. All right, so here we go. Let's go raid Spirit. There's going to be a fair bit of boilerplate that'll actually be in line with the amount of boilerplate we have for our Go code, right? So it's really not that big a deal. It's very similar to other languages that are very strict in their types but don't allow inheritance and don't understand polymorphism. So that's the main gist, right? Swift and Go are actually aligned in the fact that polymorphism doesn't exist as they have. And we are responsible for deserializing things into a polymorphic way. So yeah, we're gonna go raid Spiridon. He's awesome. Super good stuff. I see Pepper over there. Sergeant Pepper, how dare you? No, we're good. You're good. It's we got a small crowd here at this time of day. That's pretty typical, actually. Could be better, but could be worse. And yeah, we spent most of the last few hours just ranting, so let's go say hi. Yeah, thank you all for chilling. Appreciate you. I'll be over on gaming if you want to hang out. We're gonna go cook some bacon and eggs and then figure something out, and I'll probably end up playing some games. The game I'm thinking about playing is probably Last Epoch, and I hate the way they phrase Epoch. It should be Epic, but whatever. That's their fault. That's their fault. But, yeah, let's go say hi to Spiridon. I'm going to pause the music. I'm going to end the YouTube stream. Thank you all for hanging out. We really didn't get that many people watching the YouTube today, so that's fun. But anyway, later YouTube.